Today's video is a makeup video filled with shabby farmhouse decor, so let's get started. I just picked up this wood round from, I believe, Hobby Lobby. They also sell some of these wood rounds at Walmart, but all I'm going to do is take my folk art white chalk paint and cover the entire thing. Now for Christmas, I received a silhouette, and I finally was able to cut out something, and I know you guys are laughing at me, but I have been struggling with any kind of cutting machine, which is why I don't really use them. But since I got this for Christmas, I thought I would try it out. So I'm just going to apply my decal here to the front of the sign, and then I'm going to take the tape off. So my paint was a little bit wet when I put the sticky part down, so some of it came off, but it gives it a distressed look, and so I am okay with that. I created a shabby bow just using some fabric, and you guys know I make these all the time. They just lay over each other, and then I use some twine to tie it off in the middle, and then I use some of my Totally Dazzled brooches. I put one here in the middle, and then here it is styled in some decor. I picked this stencil up on Amazon, and so I will link that down in my description box if you want to pick it up, but it's just a cute French farmhouse bee stencil, and I went ahead and did the crown and the bee on the blank burlap pieces. And then I took some fabric, which is my favorite way to dress up anything really, and I'm just going to tie two pieces into each section of the banner. So I'm going to put one or two pieces of fabric on each side of the banner piece, I guess is a better way to say that. And then this project is complete, and here it is styled in some decor. Just picked up these pots from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use my white folk art chalk paint, cover the pot with the white paint, and then I'm going to use my bee stencil again, and this time I'm just going to use the bee from it. I think it's time for me to get a new stencil. A little bit of my stencil is kind of not able to come through all the way, but I didn't mind that because it gives it more of a vintage feel, and that was always what the look I'm going for. So I go ahead and stencil that onto the front of the pot, and then I'm going to take some more of my fabric and make a little bow, and I'm going to glue that to the top above where the bee is. And then I took another one of my TotallyDazzled.com brooches and I glued that into the middle, and here it is styled in some decor. As long as I got you, I'm not letting it fade. Don't go looking for reasons. So I took one of these signs from the Dollar Tree and I just popped it out, and I started painting it on the front side. Don't know why I didn't think to flip it over and then paint it, which was a lot easier. But then I'm just going to take my bee stencil again, and I'm only going to do the bee. Then I picked up these stencils. They say be happy, be brave, be kind, be you. And I took the happy, and I'm just going to stencil the happy under the bee. Once I do that, I took another little shabby bow I made out of our fabric and some twine, and I'm going to glue that to the top left-hand corner like I always do. And then I'm going to take another Totally Dazzled jewel and stick that in the middle, and here it is styled in some decor. So I picked up these two baskets. They were in the spring shop, and they were 50% off. And then this candlestick was also 50% off in the candlestick area. And so this tiered tray is going to cost us a little bit over a little less than $20. I believe it came out to be $18. All I did was take some hot glue, glue my candlestick into the bottom basket, and then glue the top basket on top of the candlestick. Super easy and super all styled together. All of the items for this video were from sale items from Hobby Lobby. So right now they have a section that is 75% off in their home decor area, and their spring shop is also 50% off. So all of their signs that are in the 75% off area are between $2.50 and like $5. You can't beat that. You can find all kinds of different shapes and sizes. You can use glassware if that's something you want to do. I found my candlestick for the middle of this tray over in the candlestick area again, but it was also on clearance, so I picked up this picture. It was like $2.27. Our candlestick was $3.99, and then our other wooden piece to go on top was also like $2 and something. So this tray cost $10, a little bit less than $10 to make. And this one happens to be my favorite one of the day. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cover all of the pieces with my white folk art chalk paint. I even cover the metal tin candle holder just because I want them all to match. And then I took a sanding block and sanded off the metal parts so there wasn't paint on those parts. I just took hot glue and I glued it into the middle of the stand. Now this one I glued a little bit slightly to the back just because I wanted this one to be more of a front standing one. But if you want this to be a 360, then you just go ahead and glue it in the center element, and then here it is styled.
Can't believe it's been a year, riding through the winter night, thinking of my only wish.
And I realize that this one is not actually a tiered tray, but it is a tray. And these single level trays are one of my very favorite ways to decorate with things. I have bought ones that were already like made that you can get at Hobby Lobby, and I got them. The one that I have that's my favorite I picked up like when it was 75% off the spring shop. Mine was a little crooked, but you couldn't tell. But I recreated this by taking one of these buckets from the spring shop, so it was $5, and then this metal tray I picked up at a thrift store. I just hot glued them together, and voila, you have this super cute little stand. I'll write that down in my description box as well. But here's what I finally went with. I think it's adorable, and this is so fun to decorate with. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I had so much fun. Subscribe. So this first thing that we're going to do was something that was brought to me by one of my subscribers. I had done a video where I had printed off on copy paper to do some Canva inspired DIYs, and I'll link that video here in the cards and in my description box. But one of my subscribers suggested that I print on tissue paper, which I had never heard of. I had never done it before. So I thought I would check it out and see how it turned out. So today's video is almost all projects that are done with some tissue paper printing. So I'm just showing you here, all I did was take some tissue paper, and this just came from the Dollar Tree, and I glued the corners. I watched several videos on how to do it, and this is the one that I thought would probably be working the best. I only put the glue stick on the corners, and then I attached it to the regular copy paper and put it in my inkjet printer, and then I printed it through normal. I did get my designs from Canva. So to start our first project, I got this little wooden piece from, I believe it was from the DI up in Utah when I was visiting. It is very much like a Goodwill if you've never been there. I didn't realize that this was paper on there until I started painting it, but all I did was cover it with some of my white folk art chalk paint, and then I'm using my antique Waverly wax, and I'm just using a chippy brush, and I'm painting today. I didn't want to do any like sanding because I didn't want any of the other project down below to come through, and so I'm just using my chippy brush today. So I'm taking one of those pieces that I printed in my printer on the tissue paper, and I'm just using some Mod Podge, and I'm going on the back. So what I found out as I was doing these projects, definitely you need to make sure the outside of the tissue paper piece has the Mod Podge on it as you adhere it, and then you can go over the project with some Mod Podge on the top. If you don't seal it well on the underneath side, then it has a tendency to roll up. So I went ahead and did the outsides, and you can reposition it if you need to, but you have to be very careful. And then you're just going to take some Mod Podge and lightly go over the image on the top, and then here is this project styled with my tier tray.
I lose my breath whenever I see you. You stole my heart, what is it that you do? My life was great till you added.
So for this next project, I printed out a lavender bush that was in a watering can, and I'm just taking the sign that I got at Hobby Lobby when they had their like 75% off sale at Christmas time. I always pick up the really small wood pieces at that time because you get them for super cheap. I believe I paid less than $2 for this, and you can always remake them into other things. So again, using my chippy brush and my antique Waverly wax, and then I'm going to do the same process. So I'm going to just take some of my Mod Podge, go around the edges, and you just have to be really careful. These are so delicate just because you don't want to rip your tissue paper, but once you get it around the edges, then you're going to go ahead and adhere it to wherever you want on your piece. So I only used wood today, but I believe you could probably do the same thing like on a metal piece. A little bit of the tissue paper might show through. So I did think that this was a lot better option as far as printing goes, like if you were going to print some wording. And I have a project later on in this video that has some wording in it, but I definitely think if you don't have a Cricut or some kind of cutting machine, that this is a really affordable option to create some custom designed pieces that you can also get the same look without a lot of the bulky paper. So once I get that glued onto my little house, I took some ribbon. This ribbon came from the Dollar Tree along with some twine. I'm just going to go ahead, tie that in the middle to make my shabby bow, and then I'm going to glue that up at the top of the little house above our lavender watering can. And then I'm going to take a button and I'm going to glue that into the middle of our ribbon. I couldn't decide on the button color. I had some tan buttons and some lavender buttons, and so I actually went with a tan button in the middle and then a lavender button on top, and then here I am going to show it to you styled in some decor.
You set my world on fire. You're my heart's desire.
So I went ahead and took another one of these Hobby Lobby wood blocks. Again, I think I paid less than $2 for this when it was on sale. And then I'm using my chippy brush again. I did go ahead and do 3 coats of the white paint and then just really lightly brushing with my antique Waverly wax. So originally I wanted this piece to lay sideways, but then as I was gluing my lavender stem on, I decided I kind of liked it better standing up because I wanted to add a ribbon to this one, kind of like it was being held together with the ribbon, and so it just looked better standing up. I'm going to go ahead and I just tied this into a really easy shoelace bow, tying it in the middle with some twine, and then I'm going to glue that into like kind of the bottom, not all the way at the bottom. I wanted some of the stem to be showing. I'm going to take another button, glue it into the middle, and then here it is styled in some decor.
Please tell me you'll stay or take me away. I want you for myself every single day. You set my world on fire. You set my world on fire.
I'm going to go ahead and cover this, again, Hobby Lobby sign with some paint and some of my antique Waverly wax, and then I'm doing that same technique that I did on the other ones, but this one I had some issues with. So again, it was the first project out of this grouping that I actually made, but I ended up with some wrinkles here in the middle, and I don't know if it was because it was such a big piece, it was my first time, I'm not really sure, but I really did like how it turned out. I think that the design I picked to put on here was a little bit simplistic, and I think that maybe that is another reason why I didn't totally fall in love with it. But I wanted to show you here, I kept it in the video just because of the wording and how it says welcome. I think this is a really great option if you don't have a cutting machine, because you can get a really nice look with any kind of font that you might like, and it's customizable to your style.
You stole my heart, what is it that you do? My life was great till you added color.
For this project, we're going to make a lavender flower pot, and this is super easy. I already had this flower pot in my stash that was painted white with some, I believe, Waverly white chalk paint. And then I'm using my antique Waverly wax. It's important to go with the same stroke, so if you start going like at a downward angle or an upward angle, you want to keep those same strokes through your whole project. That way you get the same look through the whole thing. I just took some more of that ribbon, tied it in a shoelace bow, added a button, and then my favorite lavender comes from Walmart, and I just added a twig of that into the pot, and here it is styled in some decor.
My world on fire. You're my heart's desire.
I'm going to start out by taking these jeans that I got at the thrift store. These were already cut at the waistband, so I just kind of started cutting where there was already cuts on them. However, as I went through the day doing the projects, I went ahead and learned that it's a lot easier to cut at the seams. So you're going to cut up the seams of both legs, and then you're going to cut the seams like on the inside of your legs, and you'll be left with two panels, and then you can cut them to your desired lengths. And then all I did was rip them into strips, and then once I had really long strips, then I took them into smaller strips, and I just figured out the length that I wanted to do my wreath, and then I started cutting these longer strips that I had torn from the pants into these smaller strips. Alright, for this style wreath, I went ahead and just am tying them on. This is a macrame hoop that came from Hobby Lobby. It was $2.99. Sometimes they go on sale, so this is a pretty inexpensive option as well, but all you're going to do is tie them really tight, and I've made a couple wreaths like this before, so there's nothing special about this. If you wanted to add like red, white, and blue in there for a more 4th of July or Americana look, you could do that. I'm just going with straight jeans for a more like everyday look, and then I can have this hanging just as everyday decor. But once I get all my pieces all around this hoop, then I will show you guys what it looks like styled in some decor.
Can't turn the tide, let the water go where it wants.
So for this style wreath, we're going to take a wreath form from the Dollar Tree, and these are the ones that have the 4 rings. I believe this one is a 16-inch wreath form. So we're going to take those same strips, and we're going to be just, they're not really knotting them, we're just folding it over and tying it really tight onto each one of the rings. So this is really time consuming, but the outcome is really, really cool. So I'm going to explain it a little bit more here. Alright, so I finished the first section, so I went from this like 1 ring to 1 ring here, and I did go ahead and do all 4 of the rings that are in the wreath form. Now this last ring here, I think that this is really optional. The reason that I did it was because my wreath form was broken, and so if you guys can see, I don't know if you guys can see that right there, but it's broken right there, and so in order to keep it kind of together and the same size, I went ahead and tied a piece from this 3rd ring to the last ring, and then I kind of made that super like together taut, I guess you would say, just so that it was holding it together. So I went ahead and then filled in that 4th ring because I had put that there. So I kind of feel like that one's optional, but it does give it a really fun, like, full look here. The other kind of thing that I changed a little bit as I was crafting is this first row here. I have like these kind of thicker pieces of denim, and then on the end I had like these more thin pieces of denim. I like this thin piece better than I like this thick piece, but I will give you guys the dimensions for both pieces down in the description box, and you guys can decide if you want the thicker or the thin. But I'm going to continue this process all around this entire wreath form. This is time consuming, so put on a show, a book, whatever you're into, and just get to going. I'm just cutting my pieces, so I have my pieces, and these were the bigger size, and then all I did to make the smaller size was to cut that in half and tear it, just like that. So here's a little bit of update as I go around through the wreath. Now, I started out with one pair of jeans, and they were a slightly darker color, and they did not fray quite like the other jeans did. So I left that section. I'm going to put that section at the top, but I used the rest of the jeans to cover in the rest of this wreath. So it took me about 2 pairs of pants to do this entire wreath. And I did go ahead and do mostly those smaller strips of the jeans. I absolutely love how that turned out, so definitely think about doing the little smaller strips. So once I get the jean part all completed, I'm just taking leftover fabric I had. This is some of my Pioneer Women fabric, and then just some muslin that I got at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to tie this into just a shoelace bow, pretty shabby bow here, and then I took one piece and I wrapped it around the middle just to kind of hold all the pieces together since the other ones weren't part of our bow. And then I just went ahead and trimmed them so that they were roughly about the same size and shape, and then I'm going to attach it here by just looping this around the top, and then I'm going to tie it in a knot with one of the other pieces of the fabric down there. You can't even tell, it becomes a tail, and here it is styled in some decor.
You can run and hide. You can bury yourself beneath the stones. Somebody told me don't pretend, 'cause everyone could use a friend sometimes.
I just cut a pattern of a heart out of some paper from my printer, and then I'm just using a Sharpie. I'm using the inside of the jeans, and I'm just going to trace my shape of the heart. I'm going to make 2 of them because I'm going to be gluing these together. Now, you could sew these together if you like. You need a little bit thicker sewing needle for sewing jeans. I did not have that, so I'm just using hot glue here, but you can definitely use fabric glue as well, and I'll show you that option here in a little bit for another project that I'm doing in this video. But this is really simple. We're just going to hot glue it around, leave a hole, and then we're going to stuff it with some of my polyfill. I get mine from Walmart. These are super fun. You can put them in tiered trays. You can use them in other projects. These just become kind of a filler to use in your other projects that you're doing. Now, depending on the kind of jeans you use, it might fray more. You could actually wash these pieces before you use them, and then you would get more fraying around the edges as well. I didn't do that. I washed mine before I did any of the projects today, but it just kind of depends. So if you want to cut out all your pieces and then wash them, you'll get a lot more frayed, distressed look. But I'm just going to stuff this to the desired look that I want, and then I'm just going to add some hot glue here to finish off the stuffing here in the heart. I would love to know if you guys use your old jeans for projects, or if you've ever used your old jeans for projects, so let me know down in the comments what you've made with old jeans. So once I get this all glued, and some of my stuffing does kind of come out as I'm gluing it, but that's okay because these are made to be shabby, so it's okay if the edges are showing, if stuffing's coming out, because that's kind of the look. So then I'm going to take this ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just making a simple fold over bow. These are kind of called awareness bows as well. You make them into an awareness ribbon, and then you fold the back and it becomes this cute bow. You can also use twine here to tie it off in the middle if you don't want to use the hot glue, and that makes a super cute look too. I was fumbling through this hot glue today, so I probably should have used the twine here, but anyway, either way it'll work, hot glue or twine. I'm going to glue mine down to the middle, and then I'm going to add some buttons here just just to give it a little bit more shabbiness. I was thinking pearls would look really cute here too, and I know I'm going for a red, white, and blue look here, but you do not have to do that. You could use any ribbon here and it would look just as cute. So I'm just going to cut my ends at an angle. You could dovetail them here too if you wanted to. I just chose not to. I went ahead and made 2 hearts. So for the second heart, I made a shabby bow using that same fabric or the same ribbon. And then I'm going to also use some buttons here, but I just took some twine, tied off my ribbons in the middle, and then I'm just going to glue it to the top corner. Then I took 2 different colored buttons and I'm going to glue those on top. One is a white button and one is a blue button. And then I go back to kind of trim up my ribbons just so that some of them aren't quite a lot longer than the other one. And then that's it, and here it is, styled in some decor.
Take some good advice.
Pair of pants, and I'm going to cut them kind of like I'm cutting them into like short shorts. I'm going to cut off both of the pant legs on both sides. And then once I get the pant legs cut off, I'm going to cut off the crotch area so then I have this open area, but they are still both attached. Then I'm going to cut up the sides on both sides so that I'm going to remove the front of these. I'm going to be using the back with the pockets so that I can use the pockets, like as I'm crafting I can put things in there. And you could also, if you're using this in the kitchen, like utensils and things like that could go in there if you wanted to. The really nice thing about a jean apron is that it's really durable, it can get dirty, and it can withstand a lot more than maybe just a fabric apron. So then I'm just using pieces of the jean to attach like some strips along the side to tie in my back. I'm using hot glue, but as you could see, there is some fabric glue options that you could use, or you could sew. Like I mentioned before, you need a special needle to sew through jeans because they are such a thick material. So if you have that and you are wanting to sew them, you can definitely do that too. Once I get my ties glued on, then I'm ready to kind of assemble the rest of my my apron. So I have some various pieces of fabric left over, and I picked up some ribbon at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to kind of measure them to all be the same length, and then I'm going to cut up those pieces so that I'm all ready to assemble them. So I have this like cream colored small ribbon, I have a thicker cream ribbon and a white ribbon, and then I picked up this floral ribbon that kind of matched my Pioneer Woman fabric, and I cut that all into strips. So I'm ready to start assembling my apron, and I wanted to have a more like finished look at the bottom. So I took some of my ribbon and I just measured it to be the length of each side of the bottom part, and I'm just going to hot glue that on. So I hot glue the one side and then I'm sort of overlapping it, but you can't tell, and then I'm just going to glue that other part on. I do flip it over and kind of glue the piece to the back as well. So now I'm ready to adhere my ribbons, and I just randomly decided like I would pick ribbons and I'd put them, then I'd put some fabric. So there was no rhyme or reason to like how I decided to do it, but I just kind of overlapped whatever I was putting next to it. So I would put this ribbon, and then I'm going to take a bigger ribbon and then some fabric, and I'm just going to do that all the way down till I get to the other side of the apron. So this is just, up to your whatever you want to do. This is definitely a creative license here. And obviously this is customizable. You guys know I love Pioneer Woman, so this was sort of Pioneer Woman inspired. But if that is not your jam, you can definitely pick ribbon and fabric that goes with your style. So here it is with one kind of continuous line of fabric and ribbon, and I decided to go ahead and go back over some of the spaces that looked a little sparse, and I'm just going to glue on top of my ribbons some more fabric and some more of the smaller ribbons just here and there to kind of balance it out. And that is really all there is to this project. It's super fast, it's super customizable, it's adorable, and here it is styled in some decor, and I am even going to model it for you.
I can feel the sun how the wind makes way across the fields. Let me take a breath. Let me be a part of something real. Someone said it's better when you hold on to a helping hand. Sometimes we could all use.
But I just cut out my pattern and then I put it again on the bottom side of the jean fabric, cut out my pieces, and now I'm just going to lay them on top of each other. Now fabric glue would work great here as well. I decided to just go ahead and use the hot glue again, but for a more permanent feel or a washable feel even, you can use the fabric glue. So we're going to lay that on top of each other. We're going to lay our smaller one on top of that, and then we have this kind of three-piece flower. Now there's a lot of options that you could do here in the middle of it. I chose to do buttons, but beads would go here, pearls would go here. There's a lot of options here. You could even sew in the middle to make it look a little bit more like flower, but I just went for just an easy flower here. So all I'm going to do, I had this shabby bow left over from a different project. I'm just going to glue that into the middle of my shabby bow and show you here styled on a basket. And I found this sign at the DI when I was in Utah. If you've never been to a DI, it's similar to a Goodwill. And all I did was give it a few coats of my folk art white chalk paint. And then I have this bird cage stencil. I got it at Michael's about a year ago or so. And then I'm just going to use some ink by Waverly chalk paint and do the stencil. There's something so satisfying about picking up the stencil and it looking good. So once I get that picked up, I'm going to take my stencil brush with some more of the ink by Waverly chalk paint, and I'm just going to go around the entire sides of the sign. I left a big spot up at the top because I have a big bow to put here, and so I didn't want to put anything else. This stencil set also comes with birds, and so you could actually put birds inside the bird cage if you wanted to. Now I have this bow left over from a previous project, and if you want to see how I made it, I will link that down in the description box and up here in the cards. But here is this piece styled in some decor.
You do. My life was great till you added color.
I picked this one up at the DI. I paid $3 for this one. I also paid $3 for the previous project that you just saw, and I'm just going to remove this really old ribbon that was attached to his neck, and then I'm going to paint him with some white folk art chalk paint. So I'm just going to cover his whole body. This did take me a little bit because I wanted to get all of the side pieces, and then I had to move his legs and arms up and down just to make sure that I could get in the creases. I didn't see a way to detach his arms and legs, and I didn't want to break him, so I just went ahead and painted it that way. Once I finished that, I took this really light ballet slipper. It's like a really light pink color from folk art, and I'm going to do his nose, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a portion of his ear. I thought it would be fun to maybe give him some blush, but I didn't really like how the blush turned out, so I just kind of painted over that with some white paint. So I do go ahead and leave his ear and his nose because I think that that turns out really adorable. This is a really super light pink color, so if you wanted it to be a little bit darker, you could go with a darker pink. You could also mix in some white paint, and that would give you like a desired pink color that you were going for. So then I took some antique Waverly wax and my chippy brush, and I'm just going to go pretty much over all of the sides of the bear, the sides of his arms and legs, and then I do really lightly go over his whole body, and I do both sides. Once I have that part done, I took some ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree, and this is just that really light celery color along with the farmhouse ribbon. And then I'm going to go ahead and I do just put them together and loop them together so then they're tied together into that bow. And then I take my scissors and I'm just going to go ahead and cut each of the ribbons up in a diagonal to give it a more finished look. You could also dovetail the ends here if you wanted to. And then that is it for this project. Here he is styled in some decor.
Like the moon needs the sun, we don't care about the others. You set my world on fire. You're my heart's desire. I just wanna love you.
Hi friends, are you enjoying today's video? I hope so. And if you are and you haven't hit that like button yet, go down, hit that like button. It really helps my channel grow and be seen by other people. I just thought this piece was absolutely adorable. He was also $3. I also got him at the DI, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take off some of this ribbon that was attached to his tail, and the tail is like a jute rope that was like unknotted and tied together there. So he was painted white at one time, and I keep calling it a he, but I actually turned it into a she. But it was painted white at one time, or a cream color, but it was very faded, and so I just gave it a much needed coat of my white folk art chalk paint. And then I'm taking some ribbon and I'm going to make a shabby bow. My rose ribbon was too wide, so I went ahead and took some scissors and just cut that down the middle. You can't even tell once the bow gets on there, so that's what I really love about these shabby bows. I also picked up this heart lace ribbon from Hobby Lobby, and I just put that in with my rose ribbon, which also came from Hobby Lobby. And then I'm going to go ahead and dovetail all the ends, and then I'm going to glue this one to the back of his tail. So I don't want any of my twine showing where I tied it off into the middle of the ribbon, so I decided to go ahead and use one of my jewels from totallydazzled.com. Now you could put anything here, buttons. I thought about pearls too, but they just weren't quite big enough to cover that piece. Another piece of ribbon over the middle also looks really nice too. So once I get that bow glued on there, I kind of fluff out the tail, and then I'm going to add another bow to the front of the horse using that same ribbon, and I did cut this one in half because it was just kind of too thick for this like size of horse. So I crisscross it, glue it there, and then I created another bow to glue on top of that I just folded over, glued, and tied with some twine, and then I'm going to glue it into the middle of that crisscrossed bow. Then it looks like the tails of the bow. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach another one of my Totally Dazzled jewels right into the middle there. It gives it a little added touch, and this horse gets lots of bling, and I think it turned out so adorable. Here it is, styled in some decor.
Take me away. I want you for myself every single day. You set my world on fire. You set my world on fire.
This is a wood piece that I picked up at the DI, along with a good sized piece of wood, and all I did was paint this with my ballet slipper folk art chalk paint, and then I'm covering it with my white folk art chalk paint. So once I have that covered, I take this other piece of wood that I also picked up at the DI, and I'm just using my white Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to cover this whole sign with my chippy brush. Once I have that completed, I'm going to glue my flower pot down into the bottom center of this wood piece. So we're going to be creating a flower arrangement inside the top of this pot. I do go ahead and go over my pot a little bit later with some antique Waverly wax. Along with the big piece of wood, I did cover it with that as well using my chippy brush. So this little wood pot had 3 little holes in it, so I went ahead and filled those 3 little holes with 3 stems of lavender that I picked up at Walmart. And then I'm going to go ahead and put more lavender around those 3 pieces. So my original thought was to put some Spanish moss around there, but once I got all the lavender in, I decided I didn't need the Spanish moss. I did pick up my lavender from Walmart. It's my favorite place to get it. I think it's the most realistic looking plastic lavender that I've seen, but they also sell it at Hobby Lobby, and occasionally you can pick it up at the Dollar Tree. and then those would work just as well here. If I had to guess, this is about 2 bunches or 3 bunches of the lavender. I just had this left over in my stash and I used up the bundle that I had. So once I get all the lavender glued in and I'm just like bending the bottoms and gluing them on there, I decided to add a bow. I feel like once I got this project all done, my bow is a tiny bit too big. I think just a smaller, maybe shoelace bow or a fold over bow would have looked really cute here. But I just made a shabby bow using my rose ribbon and some of this like pearl ribbon that came from the Dollar Tree, and I added another one of my Totally Dazzle charms in the middle, and here it is styled in some decor.
You make me smile, what is it that you do? My life was great till you added colors, like the moon.
I picked it up at a garage sale for $3 and it had kind of come apart. It looked like it had been wood glued at one time, but I covered it with about 3 coats of my folk art white chalk paint, and then I'm using this Waverly stencil. I absolutely love this stencil. You can get it at Walmart. I am using the lavender chalk paint by Waverly as well, and I have used this stencil one other time to create a birdhouse. If you missed that video, I will post it here in the cards and down in the description box. But once you pick it up, it has this really beautiful pattern and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So then I'm going to take some of this purple grosgrain ribbon. I had this in my stash, but you can pick this up at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to glue a little bow into the middle of the heart. And then I'm going to take a pearl from the Dollar Tree and glue that into the middle of the ribbon. Then I made another shabby bow using that purple grosgrain ribbon along with some white grosgrain ribbon. I did take a piece of material, a piece of the ribbon, and glue that into the middle of this bow just to give it a more finished look. And then I took a pearl and gave our horse an eye, and here he is styled in some decor. This is my favorite project of the day. I absolutely love how he turned out.
You're my heart's desire. I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you.
Picture frame. I picked it up for $2. It is like barnwood, and I'm just going to take some Waverly white chalk paint and I'm going to give it 1 coat. So I'm not going to give it full coverage. The really nice thing about this kind of wood is you can paint 1 coat on there and you get the nice distress look without having to actually distress anything. So I picked up these stencils from Amazon. They came in a grouping, and I'll show the grouping here in a little bit later, but I'm just taking some fabric that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just using some black Waverly chalk paint and my little chippy brush from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to stencil that onto the fabric. And then I'm going to take my staple gun and I'm going to staple the fabric to the back of my frame. This is super easy and I don't have to have a backing to it. Once I get that stapled to the back of my frame, then I'm going to take some fabric that I had on hand and I'm going to cut them into strips. So you can cut them however you want. I tried to make these kind of longer. They're about 1 to 1.5 inch strips, and then I'm going to create a bow with these. So I'm going to measure them out with my hand. I do about my fingers width apart, and then I add about 2 inches to that, and then I do the same thing on the other side, and I'm going to fold this ribbon or fabric over, and I'm able to get about 3 pieces or 3 loops to each one of these pieces of fabric. Then I'm going to go ahead and take another piece of the fabric and I'm going to start at the other end, and I'm just going to continue to do that for all of the pieces of fabric that I have cut here. Now you can go back and cut off the loops if you want to. I didn't, but you definitely could do that if you want it to be more of like a frayed look. So once I get all my pieces folded, I'm going to take that one piece that I had laying down on the bottom and I'm going to tie that into the center. That's what is going to keep our bow tightly fit there. And then once I just tie that into a knot, I had a few of the strands that I made into like a strand of a bow. I'm just going to attach that to the back and I'm going to tie it on to the other bow part that I made. Simple. It'll come attached if you want to detach it and use this bow for something else. But these are super fun. You can tie them to chairs. You can tie them just to like a blanket ladder or something like that. Like I said, you can cut the bow pieces apart, and that gives you definitely a more like shabby frilly look, and you can definitely use other types of fabric as well. I'm just going to attach this up at the top of the corner of my frame using some hot glue, and then once I get that attached, I will show you this project styled in some decor.
Wanna do it all with you by my side. If you're in, meet me here tonight. Be brave and come along. I'll be your ride. Promise we don't need no brake lights. We can travel the world, so just say yes.
This one is metal, and it was a steal of a deal and probably the best thing of the day, but it only cost me $1. I am using my paint tent here that I got at Lowe's. I will link down in my description box when you can get from Amazon, but this thing was pretty amazing. It controlled all of my spray paint, and it didn't get anything on my project like from the wind blowing in or anything like that. So I highly recommend one of these. Even if you're spray painting inside, it works as well, like in a garage or something. All I'm going to do is give this metal piece like several coats of this blue Rust-Oleum spray paint, and here it is styled in some decor.
Getting drunk on whiskey on a Tuesday night. Drinking red wine by an open fire. Make love or fight. This or that. This or that. Evenings on the train or catch a morning flight. Enjoying dinner until midnight. Or bed by night. This or I wanna see it all.
Up at the Goodwill for $2. It's a wooden birdhouse. Somebody had this outside, but it had this like twine stuff wrapped around it. So I got these like needle nose pliers, and I'm just going to take out all of the staples that were keeping this twine wrapped around it. It kind of went around the top, and then it looped down on the bottom as well. There were quite a few staples into this little tiny piece of wood, but I did finally get them all out, and then I just took off this twine part and I threw that part away. It was pretty old, and you can tell that this piece has been out in the outside. Then I'm going to give it about 2 coats of my Waverly White chalk paint, and I just go ahead and paint over the entire thing, even the painted part on the top there. Then I'm going to take some floral foam, and I'm going to put it into the inside of this little planter box, and then I'm going to use some lavender that I had on hand. I usually get my lavender from Walmart or the Dollar Tree. I'm pretty sure this one came from the Dollar Tree, but I'm just going to put several sprigs in there, just enough to cover up the greenery of the floral foam. Once I get all of my greenery into the planter box, then I decided to go ahead and add a shabby bow at the top, and this just was some leftover fabric that I got at a garage sale. It had a few little birds on it, and so I thought it would be really cute for this birdhouse. Then, to give it a last little touch here, I picked up these birds at Hobby Lobby over in the wedding section, and I'm just going to add one of the birds here into the top of the little perch part, and then I added another little piece of fabric to the middle of this bow, and I just tied this as a shoelace bow, and here it is, styled in some decor.
In the open wild. Catch a glimpse of Panama. We don't need a map. I'll let you know when we've arrived, yeah. We can travel the world, so just say yes. Choose to do whatever comes next. This or that. Getting drunk on whiskey on a Tuesday.
Shelf for about $2, and then I picked up these IOD transfers in a transfer book. All I did was turn my shelf, or I didn't turn it, but I just used the back of my shelf to trace on the back of my IOD transfer, and then I made sure that it lined up and I cut it out. Then I'm just going to adhere it to the front of my shelf. These transfers are so amazing. I love how they look. If you want to check out the transfers or any of the other IOD products, I will list the link to the store that I used for Ruth and Ruby, and I will list that down in my description box. But I'm just using my scraper that came from Hobby Lobby. You can also pick up one at the Dollar Tree, and here it is, styled in some decor.
This or that. This or that. Evenings on the train or catch a morning flight. Enjoying dinner until midnight. Or bed by night. This or we can travel the world.
But I picked up this wooden goose for $1, and I'm using some stencils again, and these are from the same pack of stencils that I had used earlier. They came with about 4 or 5 stencil sheets, and they also came with a ring, and you can put them on the ring and keep them all together. So I thought these were really awesome. I did pick them up at Amazon, and I will link those down in my description box. But all I'm going to do is I used a couple coats of my Rust-Oleum white spray paint, and then I'm going to use just my black Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to go ahead and stencil all over just the front of my goose. Once I get that finished, then I'm going to take some fabric that I had in my stash, and I'm using buffalo check and polka dots. These are still black and white to go along with the goose and the stencil, and then I'm just going to tie that into a knot here on the neck of the goose. Once I get that tied onto the neck, then I'm just going to take some more buffalo check fabric and make a little bow, tied the middle of my bow off with some twine, and I'm just going to glue it here into the middle of what I'd already put on the goose's neck. To finish off my bow here, I decided to add a jewel from totallydazzled.com, and I'll list that link down in my description box, but I think it adds such cuteness here into the middle of our goose, and then here it is styled in some decor. For this project, we're going to create a lavender planter, and I picked up this wooden sign at a thrift store for $1, and I gave it a couple coats of my white Rust-Oleum chalk paint. Then I picked up these bags also. They were 5 for $1 at a thrift store, and it was two-sided. There was a pocket on each side. There was also a ribbon there. I cut off the ribbon, and there was this weird fading from where the ribbon was. So I'm just going to glue that side down onto my board and use the other side's pocket. So I just go ahead and put 2 little pieces of hot glue where the ribbon was, and then I'm going to put a dot here at the bottom and a dot at the top just to make sure that my burlap bag stays. Now, if you wanted to recreate this, you could use a sign from Dollar Tree. You could also just use pieces of burlap. You could glue them on, and then you can make a pocket as well. So this could be easily reproduced using just items from Dollar Tree. Then I'm going to take my flower bundle, and I realize these are lilacs and not lavender, but if you wanted to put lavender here instead, you could totally do that. I actually like how the lilacs end up looking here in the end, but I'm just going to make a bundle, use some fabric, and tie it together into a little bundle of flowers. If you didn't want to use fabric here, you could also use ribbon. Either would work. I'm just going to go ahead and tie it in a knot. You could also tie it in a little bow if you wanted to, and that would be super cute as well. But once I get it tied into a knot, all I'm going to do is place my flowers into the little pocket that's on the front. Now, here in a minute, you're going to see me use a stencil on the front of my burlap. I should have done that first. It was kind of an afterthought because once I got the project all put together, I felt like it was missing something, and once I put the stencil on the front, then it really brought that all together. So, hindsight being what it is, I could have done that before I put the bundle in. So then I took some more of my fabric, and I'm just going to make a quick shabby bow using some twine and tying it off in the middle. Once I get that tied off, I'm going to go ahead and glue that to the top of my wooden sign. So I love making these bows out of fabric, but you could definitely use a ribbon or anything else like that can make a shabby bow. I've just been really loving getting the fabrics. There's all kinds of fabrics to choose from. You can also buy the fat quarters at Walmart or Joann's, and they're inexpensive as well, especially if you're just using them to make little bows. But I find that you can get a lot of really inexpensive fabric at thrift stores and garage sales, so definitely be on the lookout for that. So I added one of my Totally Dazzled gems into the middle of that bow, and then I'm going to take this stencil that I got from Amazon, and I'm just going to stencil that here in the middle. I will link these stencils as well down in my description box, but I'm just using black Waverly chalk paint, and then here it is styled in some decor. A planner box, and I've had it for several years. I have even used it just by itself without doing anything to it. It's designed to actually go outside. I'm not going to be putting it outside, but I did go ahead and paint the inside as well. I'm using Crystal Waverly chalk paint today. It gives it a very light blue shade, kind of a coastal look, I guess, if you're going for that. But these screws are sticking out after I got them painted. I didn't really like how it looked, so I'm going to go ahead and add some hot glue to those screws and my half beads. I got these half beads at Amazon, and I will link them down in my description box, but these are really great to use if you want to cover up things like screws or to give it like a more design to your piece. And there's not a lot to it. They are easily paintable, and so this turned out really high-end looking, I think, after I placed the beads on there. So this piece of greenery I picked up in an Amazon return store that we have in my area. I paid $5 for it. I will see if I can find it on Amazon. If I can't, remember Hobby Lobby sells these giant pieces of greenery all attached together as well. Definitely be on the lookout for them to be on sale because they are a good price if you can find it on sale. And then here it is, styled in some decor.
I lose my breath whenever I see you. You stole my heart, what is it that you do? My life was great till you added.
This one was in really like roughed up shape, but definitely had a vintage feel. I decided to go ahead and paint mine with some white Waverly chalk paint. This might have been folk art chalk paint, but any white chalk paint will do. If you don't want to cover up the rusted look for a more vintage look, you can totally just add the flowers instead of painting it. I wanted to give it a little bit more of a white feel to go with the rest of my DIYs, but that's totally up to you. All I did was add some flowers that I also picked up at a garage sale, and here is it styled in some decor.
You set my world on fire. You're my heart's desire. I just wanna love you, just wanna...
Hi friends, are you enjoying today's video? I hope so. If you haven't hit that like button yet, consider hitting it now. It helps my channel grow and it helps my video be seen by other people. Picture frame up at, I believe, Salvation Army. I think I paid about $5 for it. It was a really nice piece of wood frame, and I'm just taking some of my Cashew Waverly chalk paint and a chippy brush, and I'm only going to go over this with one coat. So picture frames are, again, something I find all the time at garage sales and thrift stores. You can find just about any type of picture frame you are looking for if you go thrifting. So once I get that all covered, I took some different sizes of ribbon that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to string them all along the back of my picture frame. I think I have about 4 pieces of lace all together, and then all I did was hot glue them. You could also use a staple gun if you would like. And I took some of my solo wood flowers and I glued a couple at one side of the frame, and then I glued some more at the bottom side of the frame, making a shabby bow as well, and then gluing my flower into the middle of my shabby bow. And then here it is, styled with some of my earrings. I absolutely love this piece. It is definitely one of my favorites.
Oh, take me away. I want you for myself every single day. You set my world on fire.
Definitely something I find all the time at thrift stores and garage sales. I buy them only there because they are so much cheaper than picking them up at an actual store. You can pay $30 to $40 to $60 for a nice basket, and if you look at garage sales or thrift stores, you can find those same baskets for only a few dollars. So all I'm going to do is add some white folk art chalk paint to this entire basket. I added some greenery to it, and then I'd already created this chunky bow for a different project, so I'm going to be tying it to the strap of my basket. I'm just going to take some white like grosgrain ribbon, and I just picked a desired amount, cut it off. I'm going to glue it here to the back of the bow. Once I have it glued to the back of the bow, I'm going to tie it onto the handle of the basket, and then here it is, styled in some decor.
Myself every single day. You set my world on fire.
I did go ahead and decide to use some white folk art chalk paint to paint it so that it wasn't quite as shiny, and since I'm using a transfer, I wanted to have it have something to hold on to. Now this tin was like 50 cents. It did still have the label on it, and it was from Hobby Lobby in the spring, so you could probably find it there now. I finally picked up one of these IOD transfer sheets. This is pretty amazing. I see them all the time on our green acres. Teresa uses them and she makes absolutely beautiful projects with them, and I finally decided to get some. I don't have a store in my area, so I had to order online, and the ladies were absolutely wonderful that I worked with. I will link their website down in my description box, but they called me because something I ordered was out of stock, and I thought that was pretty amazing that they actually gave me a phone call to give me some choices on what to do since what I ordered had sold out. So as you can tell, it's super sticky, and I got really worried because some of it wasn't coming back up, and so I just committed to where it was. They send you this really cool like plastic scraper, and then you just go ahead and scrape it on there. I've never had much luck with transfers, and so I was a little bit worried, but these are very high quality and really easy to use, and I can't believe the beauty of just like the rub-on transfers. The ones I got were 4 sheets, and they were 4 continuous sheets, like you could do a really big project or a couple really big projects. I went ahead and cut this out just to add it here. I did also pick up some of the Iron Orchid stamps and stamp pad, so be on the lookout for those projects. I'm super excited to get to use them. So I went ahead and took some Mod Podge and just went over this just to make sure it was there and it like stuck down. And then here it is, styled in some decor. This shelf liner that you can pick up at Walmart. It is from the Pioneer Woman, and there are 2 different sizes. There's a smaller one and a larger one. I'm going to use the larger one today. This table runner is actually going to go on a coffee table that I have, but I'm going to feature it for you guys, showing you how to style it on an actual table. So I went ahead and used this entire roll of shelf liner, and then I picked up these fat quarters that they also have at Walmart over in the fabric department, which is also Pioneer Woman. So they have several different designs. I took 4 of the fat quarters, and I'm going to go ahead and tear them into strips. So what I do is I'm going to take, this one has a piece of white on the edge of it. I'm going to go ahead and trim that off, and then I'm going to take each of the fat quarters and I'm just going to take a pair of scissors, snip it, and then tear it so I have about 18 strips come in each one of these fat quarters. So once I have them all put into the strips, I just go ahead and knot them at the top so they have this really kind of fun shabby look to them. And then I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm going to intertwine them in at the very end of the shelf liner. I didn't do anything to the shelf liner. I left it exactly the same because I used the full length of it. And all I'm going to do is take one of each of these colors, glue them where the knot is that I made onto the edge, and I'm just going to follow that pattern all the way to the edge of this shelf liner. So it does take the total amount of fabric strips that I made. There were 18 of each color, and it took 18 to do both ends of this table runner. If you're familiar with the Pioneer Woman or you like to use her products, she does a lot of mismatching, which is what I really liked about how this turned out, because they are all kind of different colors and different patterns, and they all go really well, and I just absolutely love how this turned out. So here is the one end of it. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same process on this other end of the table runner, and here it is, styled in some decor. Saw a set of coasters that are Pioneer Woman over at Walmart. This wooden set of coasters came from Hobby Lobby, and last week the wooden products were on sale for 40% off, and normally it's if it's $4.99 or over, and last week it was 40% off all unfinished wood, so that's a really great deal to get some really fun pieces. So I'm going to take the base of this and I'm going to paint it in my pink folk art chalk paint, and then I'm going to use my antique Waverly wax, and I'm only only going to cover one side of the round piece of the coasters. Then I'm going to take some white folk art chalk paint and I'm just going to go ahead and dry brush that all over the base of the coasters. That gives me a nice distressed look and a really fun farmhouse look. Now this can be customized to any colors that you want, and if you're not into Pioneer Woman, this could be any, scrapbook paper that you want to do. I picked these up at Hobby Lobby and they were on sale, so they were like $1/4 for each sheet. I thought that they were really close to the style of pattern that she likes to put out, and so I thought these made a really fun dupe. All I'm going to do is place them on the paper, and I'm going to put 2 coasters to each piece of paper, and it was pretty simple. All I did was take a pencil and trace around the wood circle and then cut that out. So once I got the circles cut out, then I'm just going to take some Mod Podge and I'm going to adhere that to the paper side. I find that it wrinkles less if you put the Mod Podge on the paper rather than the project. And so I go ahead and do that and secure it onto my coaster. I also did put a layer of Mod Podge on top of the paper, and then I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of sandpaper and I'm going to sand the edges of the coasters. That way they are a flush edge to each one of the coasters. And I did go ahead and go outside and spray this with a clear matte spray, since water and things like that would be going on top of this, using it as a coaster. And here it is, styled in some decor. It's probably a planter, but when I saw it, immediately my mind went to like some kind of napkin holder for picnic or a party of some kind. I don't know, probably because I have been watching a lot of Pioneer Woman on Discovery Plus. It's one of my most favorite things to watch in the morning, and it gets me inspired to do cooking and things like that. So I just absolutely love that show. But I took some antique Waverly wax and I'm just going to cover the entire project with it. How you do it, if you're not familiar with that, you're going to paint it on, and then you're just going to take a paper towel or a napkin and you're going to wipe off any excess wax to give it a really nice stain. So if you don't have any antique Waverly wax, a stain will work just as well. So once I have it on and it's all dried, I took another piece of that scrapbook paper and I just cut a section of it. This project was inspired by her ice cream maker that I just got this summer, and if you've not seen it, it has like these little wood pieces and then a design like that go down the side of it, kind of like this, and so that's what inspired me to create this. But then I took these half wood beads that I got from Amazon, and I'll link those down in my description box. I just covered them with some antique Waverly wax as well, and then I'm just going to periodically glue them around the side here. I glue 3 of these beads on, and I just do it in thirds, and then once I get those beads glued on, then here is this project styled in some decor. Hi friends, are you enjoying today's video? I hope so. And if you are and you haven't hit that like button yet, go down, hit that like button. It really helps my channel grow and be seen by other people. I was kind of going with the same picnic party theme, but I found this cute little box. You could also use this for a desk organizer if you wanted to, or any kind of organizing situation, but I covered it in some of this dark red folk art paint, and then I took this scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just gluing it to the front and the back. So this wasn't quite long enough. It was a 12 by 12 piece of paper. So I got to thinking as I was, piecing this together, that fabric would probably be really cute on this project. Or she also makes a adhesive shelf liner that you could put here and just adhere, and then you wouldn't have any seams with the paper. And you can pick up that adhesive shelf paper at Walmart as well. But here it is, styled in some decor. picked up at Hobby Lobby several years ago, and it used to hang in my laundry room, but I had moved recently, and so I decided to redo this to kind of put it in my kitchen dining room. So I'm going to take some white folk art chalk paint, and at first I decided I was going to dry brush it on here, but the wood was soaking up the paint, so then I just ended up painting it on there. So I decided to do the one direction of lattice, and then I was going to go back and do the other direction of lattice, but in all honesty it was not turning out really well. You can see here in my next shot that it's like very, I don't know, it's not cohesive and it's real choppy as far as the paint goes. So I decided to scrap painting it with my chalk paint and decided to go outside and use some spray paint. So I'm going to cover this entire project with the spray paint, which I ended up really liking a lot better, and that made this project go super fast. So then I took some more of that scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I adhered the Mod Podge onto my project rather than my paper, and I'm telling you guys, that's where the wrinkles come from. So I did my best to get the wrinkles out of this, but this is it for this project. All you're going to do is put your piece of paper into the middle, and then I covered it again with some more Mod Podge, and here it is, styled in some decor. For this project, we're going to be redoing this wooden plate that I also got in the unfinished wood section of Hobby Lobby. I've seen this there several times, and I thought it would make really cute kitchen decor. I'm going to go ahead and cover it with this pink folk art acrylic paint that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I'm using my same pieces of scrapbook paper that I also got there. I did go ahead and do some dry brushing over the pink paint with some white chalk paint after I was done. I just added this piece of paper, super easy, and here it is, styled in some decor. Be a tray if you wanted it to. I make this a double project just to show you how you could do it either way. I decided to use it as a riser, but I'm going to cover the whole thing in my white chalk paint from Folk Art. I left the bottom open, and all I did was measure the inside and cut out my paper to adhere to the inside. I'm going to go ahead and put my Mod Podge down. I'm telling you guys, put it on the paper, don't put it on the project. I don't know why these last two projects, I must have been tired. So I go ahead and I put it in there. You could add some handles to that if you wanted to, but I decided actually my husband decided that this would be a good idea, and I actually ended up really liking how it turned out. So I cut a piece of paper, and I'm just going to go ahead and Mod Podge that to the very bottom of this wood piece, and then here it is, styled in some decor. Take this sign that I got at a thrift store, and I'm just going to cover it with some cream chalk paint. I am using all folk art chalk paint today, and I'll list all the colors down in my description box. So I used Canva today, and I printed off this sign that says faith over fear. If you've never used Canva, I'll put a link down in my description box. This video is not sponsored by them. It's just an amazing website that they do have a free subscription for. I have the paid version, but the free version you have several options too, and you can create all kinds of free printables. So once I get that glued on, I'm taking some antique Waverly wax, and I am taking some more of that cream chalk paint and mix it together, and I'm just going to dry brush it over the entire thing. Then I'm going to show you my shabby bow. So I took this ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to cross it over. I do this twice, so I have 3 types of ribbons. I do each ribbon, and then I do that a second time using some twine. I tie it together, and then I'm just going to glue that into the middle of the top of this sign. I took one of my solo wood flowers, and I'm going to glue that into the middle, and then here the sign is, styled in some decor. So I picked up these little houses at Target, the Target like dollar spot, I think in January. But I have several packages of them, so I thought this would be a perfect place to start. So I painted it with my cream colored chalk paint again, and then I'm just going over it with my Antique Waverly wax mixed with the cream paint to give it the dry brush look. And then I decided to go ahead and cut out the Faith Lives Here to match the entire front of this sign. I didn't like it just cut out as a circle. So again, I created this just on my Canva subscription and printed it off on my computer, and then I glued it to the front with a Mod Podge, and I'm using my file just to get off any of the excess paper that's around the sides. I like using a file because you can get into those little spaces like up by the chimney. Then I went ahead and used that dry brush cream and Antique Waverly wax again over the paper so that it matched and it wasn't like a stark white. And then all I'm going to do to finish this project off is another solo wood flower down in the corner, and then here it is styled in some decor. Dollar Tree, and I like to reuse their beaded garlands. They are totally worth the $1.25, but I don't really like the colors. I feel like sometimes they're very bright, and I like to give it a more muted tone. So I'm going to just take off the bunny that this one came with, and I'm using one of their wood hearts, and I'm just going to tie the wood heart on with the twine that was already there and make my own little hanger for this beaded garland. Once I get that on, I'm going to use some of my pink folk art shop paint, and I'm just going to paint the entire heart, both sides and the edges, and then I'm going to take my cream colored chalk paint again, and I'm going to go over all of the beads. You can dry brush this on, you can actually paint it on. It really just depends on how muted you want the colors to be. I made another garland like this earlier on in the spring season with a little bunny on the end, or I think that one might have been a chick. But anyway, these turn out really cute and they give it a much more muted, shabby look. So then I'm going to take some more of that ribbon that I used in the previous project, and I'm going to make a tassel. All I do is kind of group them around together around the tassel that's already there, and then I'm going to use some twine and tie it off at the top so you get the tassel look. This time I didn't glue my ribbons to the tassel, but you can also do that as well. Glue them all to the top of the tassel and then wrap your twine. It works just as well. Either way is a great way to make your own tassel with something that's already there. So I couldn't find any paint pens, so I just decided to go ahead and use a Sharpie. I'm going to write out the word faith, and then I'm going to add some dots to my letters. Then to give it a little bit more of a country feel, I decided to go ahead and do the dots and lines around my heart. I just absolutely love the way that looks. It's just something I've always done for projects to give it a little bit more pizzazz when I think it's missing something. So all I'm going to do is take that Sharpie, go around, do the dots and lines, and then here it is styled in some decor. I went ahead, used Canva again, printed this out on my computer, and then I'm going to tear it along the edges. I'm just going to go ahead and use Mod Podge again to glue it to this sign. So this sign actually came from Hobby Lobby, and this week they are on 40% off in their unfinished wood area. So I'm using my same Antique Waverly wax and cream colored paint, and I'm going to just dry brush the paper again so that it kind of matches. I went a little bit darker with the paper than the sign actually was, and this ended up having a much more country feel to it. But anyway, I do love how it turned out. So then I'm going to take some Mod Podge to the back of our paper, and we're just going to glue it right onto that sign. This was a really good deal. It was less than $5 for the sign, and it's a really nice kind of big sign. So once I get that all on, I'm going to make sure I smooth it out, and I do put some Mod Podge over the top. I'm then going to make another messy bow, and I made this one a lot more country looking just to kind of go with what the sign was turning out to be. So the nice thing about these shabby bows is you can create them to be any style you want. Since the sign was taking on a more country look, I went with more country ribbon. If it's more of a shabby look, then I go with more shabby ribbon. So it really just kind of depends on your preference. So I had these burlap roses in my stash, and I thought that that would look super cute here on this bow. And then here it is styled in some decor. I have another video for you here up on the screen, so if you want to keep crafting with me, check this one out next. As always, wherever you are in your journey is a perfect place to start, and I will see you in my next video. Bye friends!